This isn't a victory for anyone. Quick refresher, the Dakota Access Pipeline was an oil pipeline intended to run from the Bakken oil fields in North Dakota to an oil tank somewhere about Spartoka, here in my home state of Illinois. A section of the pipeline was intended to go through the Standing Rock Native American reservation, a decision made without actually consulting any of the people living on that reservation. So naturally, those people living on the reservation called bullshit and began to activism at the pipeline. For 2 years, these water protectors fought weather, police, and a media blackout in order to protest at the pipeline, and on the 4th of December 2016, one day ahead of a planned forced evacuation, and 2 days after a group of some 2,000 military veterans had assembled to protect these water protectors, the Army Corps of Engineers said to the people building the pipeline, Sunoco Logistics and Energy Transfer Solutions, that their permission to build at Standing Rock had been revoked. As of this writing, most of the analysis I've read says that the project is dead. And all that sounds good, and maybe I'm being cynical, but what it looks like to me is that the only reason this was actually stopped is because somebody, somewhere, realized that having a small army of actual military veterans standing around the protest camp meant that the chances of an armed, violent resistance just skyrocketed. Let me be clear. I stand with the water protectors as much as I can, not having a job or a car or any way to actually do anything helpful. I don't want any oil running through Jacksonville, and I don't want any sacred native land getting torn up so that the oil corporations can make a quick buck. I am in favor of the protests. Hell, I'm not even bent out of shape because a bunch of veterans went up there to help rectify the situation. No, what worries me is something purely hypothetical. What worries me is that the only reason the situation was rectified was because there were now an amount of Army regulars at the camp that could have actually violently rebuffed efforts to clear the camp out. And more importantly, the potential blowback from that. That isn't to say this is exactly what happened. This is all purely speculation on my part. It could have been that the authorities were made aware that the easement had been denied, and when it was going to be publicly announced, and ordered the camp cleared out a day afterwards in an attempt to scare out some people from the camp, an attempt that backfired catastrophically. It could have been another mostly innocuous scenario I wasn't able to dredge up in between writing and recording this video, but the simplest way of looking at this, the simplest narrative to pluck out, is that some civilians brought some guns to a gunfight, and the government decided it wasn't worth the fight. Again, I must stress, all of this is purely hypothetical. But here is how I see it. Our president-elect, Tangerine Hitler, is not the level-headed, far-sighted sort that President Obama is. Our president-elect thinks it's perfectly reasonable for the president to get bent out of shape over a Saturday Night Live skit, for fuck's sake. If a similar situation were to unfold under the Trump administration, say a group of people protesting building a concentration camp, there is no reason to think that he would respond by acquiescing to the protesters' demands. Well, the way old man Snooky talks, there's no reason to think that he wouldn't have just nuked the protesters. But even more worrying than that is the corporate response. We know now how far corporations and the security companies they hire are willing to go in order to protect their profit. We've seen it firsthand. But all of that, the dishonesty, the frighteningly excessive force, the disregard for the protesters' well-being, all of that didn't work. Who's to say they won't step up their methods now? And if they do that, who's going to stop them? President's safe space? The Republican-controlled Congress who are getting paid an obscene amount of money by these companies? State governments? Some, sure, but a lot of those are also controlled by corporate bot candidates on both sides of the aisle. What I'm saying is that under the wrong conditions, the precedent set by this could very quickly lead to a major escalation in force. And if that happens, no one wins. And now, an update. Since writing and filming the rest of this video, I learned through Dollamore, a YouTube channel you should subscribe to, that Energy Transfer Partners released a statement that inferred, perhaps, that they don't intend to actually stop work on the Dakota Access Pipeline. A link to that statement, along with Snopes' analysis of it, and Dollamore's video are all in the description. And Snopes says that, yeah, they're not sure what this is supposed to be saying either. The troubling bit seems to be at the end of that statement, which says, and I'm quoting them here, "The White House is directed to take to the car for with a narrow and extreme political constituency. As stated all along, ETP and SXL are fully committed to ensuring that this vital project is brought to completion, and fully expect to complete construction of the pipeline without any additional rerouting in and around Lake Ohio. Nothing this administration has done today changes that in any way. Now, this isn't a concrete statement, but even if it isn't, the best solution happens to be what the internet is best at. Form an internet hate mob. In the description, and in a comment I will leave in the video, are the addresses and toll-free numbers you can use to get in touch with Sunoco and Energy Transfer Solutions. Because you should do that. Hell, I'm planning on doing that later, as soon as it stops being early in the morning. And I might record it. Thanks for watching. A link to the transcript is in the description. Thank you to the water protectors for serving the entire country and indeed the entire planet dutifully and diligently. They're going to be singing your praises in 10 years or so. You're going to be heroes to the next generation. So yeah, for fuck's sake, take care of yourselves, all of you.